Good afternoon, and welcome to our webinar on Cyber Essentials 2026 standard. So I think probably all kind of know who we are. So my name's Craig Pearson. I'm head of sales and marketing at your IT department. I'm joined by Narayan, who's a member of our security and compliance team. As I think all of you guys know, we provide IT support, cybersecurity, AI and automation services to small businesses across the UK. We're Cyber Essentials and Cyber Essentials Plus certified, and Narayan has taken quite a number of our clients through the Cyber Essentials standard. There are changes to it this year. They are probably the most substantial changes for a few years. So Narayan's going to take us through a bit of a short presentation. He's going to explain what's changed, what businesses might kind of struggle to actually within the new standard as well, and how you might start to prepare for certification. There'll be time at the end for questions, but if you put them in the Q&A section as we're going along, and then we'll get to those at the end. We'll get as many answered as possible. If we do run out of time, we'll make sure we email answers, or if there's anything we need to go away and find out anything more about. So without further ado, I will hand over to Narayan and let him get started.
Hello guys, but actually Craig already introduced me, so I won't do the intro, so we'll just start. Craig, just quick, can I get control of the slides, please, when you have the second? But yeah, so this is to do with the new question set. So I'm actually, to be honest, I'm not sure the naming convention of the question set. We're going from Willow to Danzel, is the new question set, and that actually went live yesterday. So the new question set is now live. However, just for reference, if you're currently going through certification, you'll still be on the old Willow set. You won't be automatically moved over. This will just be for any renewals, or if you haven't got it yet, if you start it after the 27th, that is. So we'll just be going through all the difference and changes there. I don't actually think I can go next slide. Are you okay to do it for me, please?
You do have control. All right, I've taken it back.
Okay, apologies. Thank you very much. Okay, so these are sort of the main bits that are changing. Now, the three main concerns that we'd have would be the three that are now result in an auto fail. Now, what I will say is if you've already got Cyber Essentials with us, these wouldn't actually be too much of a concern with you, because I've already been essentially treating Cyber Essentials like this. So the first one I'd mention is MFA. So now it's mandatory on all cloud services that contain any business data or process any business data. That isn't just data relating directly to the business. It could be employees' personal details as well, anything like that. Now, beforehand, the way it worked was they would still like it to be applied across the board to all cloud services. However, you could actually answer no and say it's not available, or it's not pushed out to every single platform. And if you gave them an explanation, you could actually essentially soft pass on it. So it still wouldn't be a good thing, but you're allowed up to 2 of these. So that would be one of them. However, if I've taken you through the Cyber Essentials, I've sort of mandating it myself anyway, as it's just good practice. Going forward now on any renewals, any cloud platform that has the ability to have MFA deployed on it, it will need to be deployed. Normally it's free. However, one of the big changes, if it's behind a paywall, the MFA, it still is required on the platform, even if you have to pay for it. Now, if you use any cloud service that doesn't have MFA, or there's no option to enroll an MFA, that is fine. You won't actually auto fail. You'll just need to list the cloud service, and then they should have it documented their end that doesn't have MFA capabilities. Yes, 14-day patching. So beforehand, any high risk / critical updates. Now, if you're wondering how they're defined, it's normally defined via the CVE score, and then that's global standard. So we flag these via our own vulnerability software we use. Most of them will all flag the same thing as, again, the actual scoring standards global. So these now need to be installed within a 2-week period. Otherwise, again, this is an auto failure. So beforehand, so the difference is beforehand, you could actually answer that you don't install all high risk / critical updates in 14 days. And if there was a justification, then again, it'd just be knocked, but you could have 2 of them and still pass. Now it's an auto failure. So if there's no patching 14-day patch cycle for any high critical updates, that is now an auto failure. We'll get into a bit later on. We'll get into sort of the best way to tackle that as well. Cloud in scope. So essentially, yeah, as it says, cloud services can no longer be excluded. Before, you could just essentially exclude cloud services from the actual scope, which then wouldn't need the MFA requirement. That's now any cloud services with that touches or handles your data will need to be in scope. Simple as that. Scope clarification. Yeah, again, it's just the scoping side. So before, you used to be able to exclude with not really too much justification. Now all this means is if you were to exclude part of the business or a certain part of the network, or if you're a company with multiple different businesses or multiple different networks, just exclude, then you only wanted it for a specific one or the whole and exclude, you could essentially just write what you're excluding and then it'd pass. Now you actually need to give a means and justification for it, and you will be asked if that's not already given beforehand. That's what that is. Essentially just clarifying why you're reducing or excluding things from the scope. Passwordless, I wouldn't worry. So this isn't a mandatory one. This is more so the guidelines when filling out are going to push you more towards passwordless / passkey usage. It's not required. MFA or again just 8 characters complex is still fine. It's just they're making a push for passwordless as it's often seen as more secure. And I do believe, just as heads up, it probably will become more standard a few years down the line. And then this especially, so this is more related to, again, selective patching. So this is mainly for C++. So if you're just going for CE, this doesn't relate to it at all. It's just for the C+ side of things. So when you go for C++, if you're not aware of it already, they'll get a sample size of machines from your business. And in this sample size, they'll get you to install a vulnerability scanning agent. It scans for any vulnerabilities in the machine. Any that are found in the sample size, you then have to remediate within 30 days. Now, before, all you'd have to do is remediate the sample size, and then you'd let the assessor know. They'd rescan. If there's no vulnerabilities found, that's fine. It's passed. Now, what are they going to start doing is you let them know once you've sorted all the vulnerabilities out on the sample size. They're then going to take a second sample size of machines, different machines, and if they find the same vulnerabilities on that second sample size, that's a fail. So now the guard, essentially what you're going to have to do, or whoever carries it out, is rather than just remediating the vulnerabilities on the sample of machines, it'll have to be across the whole business, across all the machines, to make sure that essentially they're all clean of the same vulnerabilities. Now, best practice-wise, that should really already be happening. But again, it wasn't a requirement. It will be a requirement, because if those same vulnerabilities are caught in the second sample size they take, it's also an auto failure on the C+ side of things. Go to the next one, please, Craig. Thank you. This is just a quick timeline. This will be relevant to a couple. So again, it already went live yesterday, the new question set. So any renewals or any new certification started, they'll now be under the new question set. If you are still currently in the process of getting your CE, so essentially the question is already started, you're still in the process, there's a 6-month window to get that submitted. Otherwise, then that is failed. So if you're still on the Willow CE, yeah, 6 months to get that submitted and passed. Otherwise, that will then be classed as a fail. And again, the same with the Willow C+. So again, if you started your C+ already before the 27th, they give you a bit more of a window, but that then needs to then be passed by the 27th of 2027. That's just key dates if you want to make a note of them. This next one, Craig. Let's go, please. Thank you. So again, this goes into a bit more detail on the specific bits. So beforehand on the Willow set, MFA expected on cloud admin accounts were chosen. So as again, it was mainly, they did, if you went to them, they would always say get MFA on everything, but in terms of requirements, it was just on the admin accounts for your cloud services. So yes, some flexibility in how it's applied to standard users. Gaps in MFA could be raised, but do not always cause immediate failure. Now MFA is mandatory in every cloud service where it's available, including free or paid options. Applies to all users, not just admins. Missing MFA on any in-scope cloud services is an automatic fail. You could go to the next one, please. Quick, if that's okay. Thank you. Patching window, again, just before and after. So high risk critical expected within 14 days. Selective patching of audit sample devices was sometimes seen during CE checks. So that's, again, they're just mentioning that people are only patching the sample size to pass the CE plus as opposed to all the machines in the business. And then slips could be marked, but not always given to end the assessment immediately. So essentially, if you slipped up during the patching, it might be flagged, but it wouldn't end the assessment. Now, OS router firewall firmware, any critical high risk within 14 days. It needs to be that. There's no if and or buts or any sort of wiggle room with it anymore. Again, it's anything high critical across the business, anything in scope needs to be patched. There's zero wiggle room now, which would technically create a lot more work depending on what was being done before. And then, answering no is now an automatic failure. Could go to the next one, please. Thank you. So cloud services was loosely defined. Some organizations excluded cloud platforms from their scope, and then inconsistent treatment between assessors and applicants. So they're trying to essentially standardize this a bit more. A formal definition: an on-demand scalable service on shared infrastructure accessed via an account. If your data or services are hosted in the cloud, it must be in scope. Cloud services cannot be excluded from the scope. So to mention there, Chris, since it would tend to be your data, even though you don't manage it, if it's sat in there, it would still be in scope. But in terms of how you'd actually address that, again, we can always pick that up at a later date because I would like to discuss that further because it is an interesting case. Here's the next one, sorry, that's okay. Great, thank you. Then just scoping clarification. So brief character limit scoping descriptions on certificates, just to give it more context. It's when one of the first questions they ask you is essentially what's in scope for the assessment that you're about to submit for. Beforehand, you could exclude from scope or limit it. And to be honest with you, they did let you get away quite easily if you wanted to exclude some things that might cause you a headache from what I've seen before. Terms like untrusted or user initiated caused confusion. So again, this is the exact same. They're just trying to standardize the Cyber Essentials process more as it starts to become more popular and used, especially in the UK. And then legal entity coverage was sometimes ambiguous. Unlimited scope descriptions on the digital certificate platform. So this means beforehand on the actual platform you filled out the questionnaire on, there was actually a character limit when you're filling out the scope. I think it was 150 characters. They've now made it unlimited. In all fairness, this would normally relate to quite large businesses, depending on how they were attaining it. As 150 characters is quite a decent amount. I've never hit the limit personally, but now it's unlimited. Out of scope areas must be described and justified. So again, before you could set things out of scope if they didn't obviously comply with Cyber Essentials, and they didn't really ask too many questions beforehand. A lot more strict now. So if you were to actually put anything out of scope, you need to have a justified reason for it. Otherwise, they'll throw it straight back at you, unfortunately. So if anything is out of scope on the network or any specific setup, it needs to have a justified reason for not being included. All in-scope legal entities listed by name, address, company, and number. Our standard practice to do this anyway, but again, if you're whatever's listed in scope will have to have a full description of company name, address, and company number as well. Whereas before, you could sort of just put main office, second office, Leicester office, stuff like that. Not very descriptive. Getting more strict on that. And then optional individual certificates per legal entity available. So this would more fall under depending how this is more for I would say multi-entity businesses. You could include them in one scope. It's now saying you can actually separate them if needed but that's not something I've personally dealt with, but that is an option going forward. And if we go to the next, if that's okay, please. Passwordless and passkeys come to the forefront. So heavy emphasis on password rules, which beforehand, again, so length, complexity, rotation, that's the usual stuff. Rotation actually not really relevant, quite dated in my opinion. MFA discussed, but not the headline. So again, they'd often mention MFA in passing, but it wasn't really pushed. And then password options weren't formally promoted. So now in the Danzel, to give some context as well, sorry. So when you fill out the questionnaires, there's guidance on the side to explain how to best address each part. They're now going to essentially, this guidance is going to be pushing more for passwordless and passkeys. So yeah, passwordless hard is easier, faster, and more secure than passwords. MFA passwordless prioritized over traditional password complexity, aligns with NCSC modern best practice guides. Yeah, pretty much. Unfortunately, we're going towards probably a future where passwords aren't going to be the best protection, no matter how complex they are, just due to computing power and also AI. So this is starting to become more and more popular, and also, as I mentioned, best practice would be passkey / passwordless, as that way you're not reliant on a password. We go next, if that's okay, please. Yeah, closing loopholes. So some organizations applied updates only to the sample devices, as I mentioned. So this is, again, sorry for Cyber Essentials Plus specifically. So yeah, apparently there's a trend where they get a sample size from a company. So I don't know, 8 devices out of 30, and then they just the company would just patch those 8 devices to pass the Cyber Essentials Plus, and then leave the other 22 unpatched, which is obviously not very good practice and doesn't really reduce your attack surface area as it should be when you're carrying this out. Self-assessment answers could be tweaked after CE test results came back. So what this means is on the actual Cyber Essentials, it relates to Cyber Essentials Plus. After your CE Plus test results came back, you could actually amend your Cyber Essentials answers. If there was something that was causing you a bit of a headache during Cyber Essentials Plus, you could maybe remove it or put it out of scope, and then it wouldn't be in the Cyber Essentials Plus actual audit. Now you can only do that. As soon as Cyber Essentials is submitted and your CE Plus starts, those answers are locked in. And then certificates didn't reflect the wider environment. So yeah, that's just saying what this results in, aka people having a CE Plus certificate for the company, but there's so many things out of scope or not included. So practice. Again, this will be applied from across the full CE scope. So if your whole company's in scope, those updates and patching must be done across the board on all devices, not just the ones that are sampled. Verified self-assessment is locked before CE test begins. Again, when you patch your Cyber Essentials Plus, Cyber Essentials, those answers are now locked. You can't actually edit them to make the CE Plus testing easier. And then directed declaration acknowledges ongoing compliance start of the year. So for example, when we go to submit it, we'll normally get the questionnaire emailed off to somebody that holds a director level position or higher at the company to sign off on the questionnaire. Now, just so you know, when they sign off that questionnaire, it also includes ongoing compliance throughout the year. What that means is, for example, patching, you could patch your whole company, but you could just patch it just to pass the CE Plus, and then it's never touched throughout the whole year until it comes around again. When you sign off on this now, you're essentially signing off that you will keep on top of your Cyber Essentials Plus compliancy throughout the year. That includes patching, MFA on cloud services, everything. So that's just to be made aware of. Go to the next one, please, Craig. That's okay. Yeah, this is just essentially what you should be doing now to essentially best either prep if you're going for a new assessment, if you're coming up for a renewal as well, you're going to want to be prepping to be able to support the new question set. So just go through them quickly. So yeah, audit MFA on every cloud service. So any cloud service you have that might have any of your data, I would recommend now going and seeing what is available in regards to MFA options on there. So is it free? Is it paid for, or doesn't it exist? And then just document that internally in a list, just so you're aware of it. As obviously, if it is paid for, it's still mandatory, so that cost would have to be factored in. That would be very important. And again, please do try and keep it documented on top of it, just because it makes it a lot easier for when the actual audit comes around to get the list, so we don't have to go chasing around to see what everybody signed up to. Confirm 14-day patching. So it's a case of you want to get confirmation that your obviously critical high vulnerabilities are being patched within this 14-day time period. So with that, now the way we would do it is we provide a vulnerability scanning service that's then actioned every other week. Now, technically speaking, you don't need vulnerability scanning. Is it an actual requirement for Cyber Essentials? No. However, I don't know any other logical way you could actually be made aware of any of the vulnerabilities that might need patching in the 14 days if you don't have some sort of scanning, if that makes sense. So is it an absolute requirement? No, it's not. However, there's no other logical way to patch these in time every 2 weeks, depending on how many computers you have, in all fairness. If you've got 2 computers, I'm sure it could be possible. But yeah, I would recommend getting the scanning service, as that's the only real logical way to tackle this. Map all your cloud services, that's just, as I mentioned before, just make sure you've got a register/list of just any cloud service you've got in use at the business. Just makes it a lot easier to keep on top of. Review your scope and exclusions. Again, if you're doing this through, like, for example, us, that'd be more in tandem with myself. So it's, just be ready to describe in detail what's in, what's out, and how excluded networks are segregated. So if you don't have anything that's out of scope, you don't really need to worry about this, as your scope's probably the same. If you do have anything out of scope beforehand, just make sure that now you'll need to actually justify it. So why it's out of scope. So just make sure that is ready. And then move towards passkeys passwordless. Again, it's not auto fail if you don't have these. It's not mandatory. I would recommend looking into it anyway. It is a decently sized change. So again, there's no major rush on this, but it's just getting ahead of the curve, in my opinion, because this will probably become mandated in the coming years. But for right now, it's just best to start early, I would say. And then, if needs be, if you're not the person that signs off on it, just brief the person that is. Just let them know that when they do sign off on this, they will be committing to keeping compliance throughout the year. It's just probably a nice thing to keep them in check, and also gets them on board with keeping compliance, because to keep compliance throughout the year, you're probably going to need at least some solutions in place. So it's just nice to have everybody on board and all on the same page. And that's it for that bit. We go to the next one. So this is just more so the wrapping up bit, I guess. So it's just how we can help. So as I mentioned, we'll actually carry out the assessment in tandem, normally with the main contact, the actual business. Go back and forth there, and then again we'll normally provide the patching solution as well every 14 days to keep on top of that. And then regarding the scoping, etc., I normally carry that out myself, and then work in tandem with the main contact to get that aligned and make sure everybody's happy on that.